Let's start that.
All right, this is,
And I'll put it in chat too.
thank you. All right, so again, thank you, everybody who is joining. What you're experiencing is us just finishing up the board meeting and transitioning to the full membership meeting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Roberts. I'm the president of the PTA. And just as you know in the chat, we are recording this and we'll have it available on our website later for those of you who are not able to join. So in the interest of time, it's 7:01. Why don't we get moving? And I think we've already done number one, which is the welcome. I do just kind of want to take a moment and say, here we are in October, mid-October. And, thank you certainly to all of the board members for all of the hard work you guys have been doing. I think we're off to a great start. We have, I think more members than we've had in quite some time, parents and teachers. We had a successful movie night. We've had some fundraisers. We've had chatty hours. We've had the walk to school day and the various other activities. So I think we've been off to a good start in this weird COVID world that we are all living in. And I also want to thank the teachers and the administrators for all the hard work you all are doing to keep everything up and running this year. So it's not easy. And with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Principal Print to give her principal's update.
I'm on mute. I'm giving the update just to myself. Sorry. We're well into the COVID testing that occurs they come every week, but the outside company that comes can only give about 125 tests per visit. So we have more than that have opted in. So we do a rotation. So we have one group that comes on one week and the next group comes the next week and we just flip it. It happens on Wednesday afternoons from 1 to 2:45. And those results are not pooled like they were last year. They're individual PCR results and they get emailed to families. I guess the first week, the contractor that they hired to do that through this company, there was an issue with some email communication, but I've been assured that since has been fixed. And if there was any positive result, that the school is notified of positive. So I don't get the results unless it's positive. We do have students in quarantine, some students in quarantine, and they attend, Madam Riley is trying to hold together which we thank her for, the French learning, so that can continue for students that have to quarantine on that end. And then on the if they're learning in English, our whole cluster got together and pulled teachers together to do some of the English instruction. So students would get some math and literacy for the day. So that has been going very well. In terms of the individual photographs, you got your forms yesterday to order individual photographs for your child. And then but a few hours later, I sent a ConnectEd message to families to let you know that Life Touch has had to quarantine some of their photographers, not because of positive, but because of exposure, because the guidelines are the same. So they're short on staffing. So we are rescheduling that date. And I heard late this afternoon, our date is going to be Thursday, November 11th. So that will be out in this week's ConnectEd. So if you got a form yesterday, which I'm sure you did, that can be thrown away. And the new date is November 11th for individual student photographs. If it's nice enough, I will opt to have those outside for safety reasons. If it's too cold or wet, we will make sure that we put safety precautions in place, and students can do what their parents tell them. If they can take their mask off to take a picture and you want them to do that, we'll do that. If you want them to leave it on, we can also do that. But we will make sure all Life Touch staff would wear masks, and we would keep the kids 6 feet apart and in one door and out the other. So whatever safety precautions we would have in place for that. But if it can be outdoors, we'd opt for that. It just is going to be dependent on what the weather looks like November 11th. I also wanted to bring up to the PTA tonight that our school instructional leadership team met and discussed what to do really about Halloween. And you know, it's hard to let go of some traditions. It's been a challenge actually since I've been at Maryvale. This is my 6th year, because each time we have Halloween and Valentine's Day and other holidays, but particularly Halloween, there are so many families that do not participate in that recognition of that day. And so we usually offered the traditional parade and then classroom activity. And then we also had alternative activities for students not participating, of which we had at least 50 students in the school, sometimes higher, sometimes up to closer to 100. So because we've changed things around, and this year there's still the same safety concerns, the instructional leadership team felt that last year, the fall themed Spirit Week was a fun way to get kids involved. So the way we have proposed that we will do a fall themed Spirit Week that week of Halloween. Halloween, I think, falls on a Saturday or Sunday. So this would be the week prior to that. And then on that Friday, each classroom, grade level and classroom will do some fun event with their children. We won't do food because it involves taking masks off and eating together. That's not 6 feet apart. We can't do it all outdoors with all the grade levels. So we are going to do the fall themed Spirit Week. We will also have fun activity that teachers will do with students in some point during that day. I did see the email from thankfully for the Vances, who have opted to host a dance party, which I think will add to the fun. So that will also be happen. So I don't know if anybody has any questions outside of that about that event or changing it or.
Spring, actually, I have a question that a couple people have asked me, and I myself would love to know the answer. Our children get sick often, and often it's not COVID, either because of an at-home rapid test that we're administering or sometimes a PCR test. How should we as parents, or should we, send the negative test results to you all at the school as our kid goes in with still kind of a snotty nose or a bit of a cough or what have you, but we know it's not COVID. It's not something you've identified, say it happened over the weekend or something. Should we be sending that in to you, to the nurse, to the teacher, or does it not matter?
When it's sent, it really doesn't matter. And
Okay.
For those that we request a negative test, we are on the lookout for that, right?
Okay.
But we don't request a negative test. So let's say your child gets a cold. A stuffy nose is not something that warrants. So the symptoms that warrant immediate going home is a cough, a severe headache, loss of sense, you guys know these, sensor, smell or taste, vomiting, diarrhea, a fever, right? So if somebody just has a stuffy nose, we may call you and say, we want you to know your child has a stuffy nose. And they're feeling okay or they're not feeling okay. And so for some symptoms, we do not need a negative test. For some, we will say, in order to come back, we need one of 3 things. We need a negative test, which we are giving tests at school now. It's the rapid test. It's not the PCR test. But you have to give, a parent would have to give permission for that to be given. So you'd need a negative test, an alternate diagnosis from the doctor, meaning the doctor says, this is not COVID, this is croup, right? An alternate diagnosis from the doctor, or the child quarantines for 10 days. And that's with a COVID-like symptom, one of those symptoms. So if it's a cold, you don't need to send the negative test. If you're asked to send that negative test, we are all copied on it, and you know, so that we're aware of it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Prin?
I have a question related to that for the testing at school. So way back in the beginning, we had opted in for the, you know, weekly testing or whatever. Is that the same opt-in for the rapid tests if they show symptoms, or do we have to do the opt-in again?
So no, what you opted in on that form, that's for the weekly testing, and that's done with an outside company. It's called Cian, I think it's how it's pronounced, CIAN. And they come every week, and that test that they do is the PCR test. So they come on between 1 and 2:45 on Wednesday afternoons. And that's what you had completed if you did, you completed the form and sent it in. The form actually didn't come to me. It went to the company. And then I got a list of the students that parents had opted their child in. And then we divided it up between an A week and a B week, because we had too many for them to test weekly. So it's on every other week. The rapid test is not the PCR test. And that is given when a child comes to the health room with COVID-like symptoms, not just because they have a stuffy nose, but they have a fever, they have a cough, they vomited, they say they can't smell anything or taste anything, some similar those symptoms. We then can say to the parent, we need you to come pick your child up because they're experiencing this symptom. If you would like us to give a rapid test, we're happy to do so. Do you give your permission? So that is a different test altogether than what's the weekly opt-in test.
Okay, so there's no pre-permission for the rapid test.
No.
It's just
Before it's given, the nurse will call and say, I'm going to need you to come pick your child up because of the severe headache. We can give a rapid test if you give your permission.
Okay.
They would not give the test without your permission.
So that's sort of different than how some of the MCPS communications have sounded.
Yeah.
In relation to the rapid test.
Yeah, I know when we have given the rapid test and we have parents can give the verbal consent on the phone to the nurse or to myself or to Mr. Bowerman, and then we will give it. And then when you come to pick your child up, then we have you sign the form. But verbal communication over the phone is permission is fine for that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Prin before we move on? All right, so next we are going.
Before we move on, Roberts, I see a lot of our staff members here tonight, so I just want to say thank you to them for coming tonight. Madam Payot from 5th grade is here. Miss Ritt, our school counselor, is here. Madam Riley is here. And I think I saw Mr. Klaus, the instrumental music teacher. I think I saw him log in there. I can't see everybody. I have to go to the next page. Yep, he's here with us too. So I just want to say welcome and thank you. You'll be hearing from, I know, for the presentation about middle schools. And so they're here to share information about that with you.
Great, yes, indeed. Thank you for teeing that up. We next have Miss Ritt and Madam Riley who are going to talk about middle school magnet and lottery programs.
Myself. Hey, how are you all? And I can share my screen, correct? Perfect, thank you. And welcome to everybody that is here. I have my presentation mode right here. So let us begin. So we will go through the presentation. And before I start, your point of contact for any of this information will be Joya Payot, who's a 5th grade team leader, as well as Miss Ritt. All right. So, and I'll just present the information, and then if there are any questions, you can put them in the chat, and I'll have Miss Ritt look at the chat and Miss Payot look at the chat, if that's all right with you all. All right, so here we go. First of all, middle school choice. I see some 4th and 5th grade parents, but it's never too early to start. First of all, it's a brand new chapter, all right? In MCPS, we have many, many opportunities. And an overview, it falls into 3 categories. You have the choice of your local school. The second one is a consortia or the choice group of schools. And the third one is a criteria-based, all right? And the fourth one, of course, is our French immersion continuation. I know we have some parents from the community side as well as the French immersion side, all right? So here we will start. There are some special programs at your local elementary school. Our Maryvale kids, our local kids go on to Wood, and Wood does not particularly have any designated program, but there are many programs within the Wood school, all right? Number 2, our local programs. So all middle schools have a variety of instructional and enrichment programs to meet the needs of our students. MCPS strives to make sure that each child has the best program for them that is programmed at every middle school, all right? And including those students that demonstrate high interest or motivation, different levels of achievement in any particular area of study. So it is recommended that you contact your local school for more information, right? Because our Maryvale French immersion kids come from many different middle schools, and some of our community kids are here on different coasts, right? So please contact your local middle school. So here is, and if I speak too fast, just give me a hands up and say to slow down. So first of all, we have our consortia, which is what we call our choice program, all right? It's called the Middle School Magnet Consortium. It's MSMC in particular. It's made up of 3 schools, and Brittany and Julia, please chime in if you have anything to add. They're Argyle, Lordaman, Parkland. Some of our students have been selected to go to those middle schools. So you may, if you wish, you may be able to go through Britt or Julia or myself and meet up with a parent or speak to a parent about that particular experience once your child has been selected, right? Each of these offer an innovative and challenging magnet curriculum, but they have 3 different ideas or 3 different programs. Argyle focuses on digital design and development. Lordaman offers creative performing arts focus. And Parkland, which I know some of our students are attending presently, provides students with opportunities to explore math and science through aerospace, technology, and robotic engineering. All right. All of these programs are based upon a choice process, and it's open to all Montgomery County students who are currently in grade 5. This presentation has a link to the middle school consortium, right? And can give you more information, but it is open to all students. And I just want to make sure, but it is lottery based and it's based on numbers of seats available. Next. So here we go. This is the important information. There's a live information session, and Ms. Britt sent all grade 5 parents a link to this. It is a recorded presentation in English, and there's one in Spanish. There are 3 open houses, one for each school. The one for Lordaman is on October 14th. The one for Parkland is on October 20th. And the one for Argyle is on October 26th. And all the open houses are at 6 p.m. And I know Ms. Ritt and Ms. Payot will be sending information about these open houses currently. As soon as we get the link, it will be sent to you through either an email through Parent View, or Madame Payot also sends it through her classroom. And Madame Payot being the team leader, it's disseminated to all the 5th grade teachers. Britt, are there any questions so far?
No.
Thank you. Next, the next selection that you have as parents of 5th grade students is a criteria-based middle school, all right? And these schools are competitive programs with limited number of seats. They're different because they require you to meet specific admission criteria, okay? These programs are open to all of our students, right? But you test in. That information session will be on November 1 of 2021 and starting at 5 p.m. Again, MCPS will have a recording of all these presentations. So if you cannot make that particular one, the county will provide a link. And again, as I say, Mrs. Ritt and Madame Payot will have this linked to their classrooms and will be disseminated to all 5th grade teachers. And Ms. Ritt is amazing at sending that to you all in on emails. So you need to be just on the lookout for that, all right? So what is the criteria, all right? Let's go to the next slide. So these entrance into these are based on your high school cluster, all right? That's your high school cluster. So you have an up county program and you have a down county program. So for our children who are here at the Maryvale cluster, they are headed to Rockville High School and they are considered the down county program, right? So you see Rockville right here. Oops, sorry, Rockville up there. Some of our kids are headed to either Seneca Valley High School or Gaithersburg High School or Northwest High School or Damascus and Clarksburg. And those students are then headed to the magnet programs at our Martin Luther King Junior Middle School or Roberto Clemente Middle School, all right? And I'll speak more specifically as to what each one addresses, all right? But entrance into these programs is a competitive and there are limited number of seats, all right? Britt, am I still sharing my screen because it says your screen sharing is paused?
No, you're still sharing.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's look at the 2 different types of magnet programs that are offered for our students starting in 6th through 8th grade. There's first the computer science magnet, all right? And so students who go there, what are characteristics of students that go to a computer science magnet, right? One is an interest, a keen interest and ability in mathematics, an amazing and strong motivation to have a deep understanding of how computers work and their applications, an interest in current events and science and conducting scientific research, and also a positive attitude and a commitment to working collaboratively with peers. The reason I have these 2 schools that are listed right here, so if you're in the up county, you go to Roberto Clemente, and if you're down county, you go to Tacoma Park Middle School. Okay, that's why I added those there. And parents are often interested in transportation. MCPS provides transportation from central stops, right? That is not your local elementary school. Oftentimes, as with any magnet, the bus ride is longer, all right, and takes more time, all right? But MCPS does provide bus transportation from central stops. Like, for example, we have one of our students who's picked up here at Maryvale Elementary because we're one of them, and he heads to Tacoma Park, right? And we have a couple. So that is the computer science magnet. Now, the second magnet is called the Humanities or Communications magnet. Where do those students go? They go to Eastern Middle School or Martin Luther King Middle School, right? We have one in Silver Spring and one in Germantown, all right? Now, what kind of child or what kind of student goes there, right? So one is, do they have a keen interest and ability in writing? Do they have strong motivation in the humanities or artistic side of media production? Do they have an in-depth interest in history, geography, economics, or current events, right? And do they have a positive attitude and commitment to working collaboratively? That oftentimes is students at those and other middle schools, they really try to make sure that they're working collaboratively. Again, Transportation is provided from central stops. Again, because it's a magnet, those bus rides are a lot longer. All right. Now, we also have our Gaithersburg Middle School, which is the continuation of French immersion, right?
Sorry to interrupt. I think your screen may be paused.
Okay, thanks. Let me try it
Yeah,
again.
we're
Thank you.
still on.
Don't worry, I'll do it
eligible
again.
clusters.
I'll do it. That's okay. And please stop me if there's anything that you need, okay? Because, all right. Am I back on now?
Yes, that looks perfect. Gaithersburg.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the final offer, and many of our students go on to Gaithersburg Middle School from the French immersion program. It's a language immersion program across the county. So our students, for the most part, go on to Gaithersburg Middle School. All right. We do have from time to time some of the kids that go down to Silver Spring International, which is the continuation of Sligo Creek Elementary, which is the French immersion program down county. It depends on where the parent is currently living, right? Again, Gaithersburg Middle School has been in existence for now almost 20 years. I think this is actually a year old. It's actually 20 or 21 years old. And it is an amazing program where they have two classes, two periods that are taught in the target language, right? And that being French for Gaithersburg Middle School. For Silver Spring International, they both have the French and the Spanish continuation, right? And that is language arts and world studies. And as you know, each course counts for 1 high school credit through the world languages department, right? The teachers are Madame Dahim, which was a former Maryvale teacher, and she taught 5th grade with us for several years. Monsieur Guibert, who's been there probably for 4 or 5 years, and Madame Mathis, who's new. I think she's only been there for about 1 or 2 years, right? And the coordinator, that person changed just recently. It's no longer Christina, and her name is Sarah, and it's linked in the program right here. Now, hot off the press, everybody. Britt and I have been hunting, and as long as Julia, we've been hunting for this information.
And when she says hot off the press, literally minutes before.
The parent interest meeting will be Tuesday, October 26th. And you know, Mrs. Prin, and you know, Mrs. Prin will put in the Connect Ed, Mrs. Britt will put it, and Joya will put it on the 5th grade page. So please know that this information will be shared with you quite frequently and often. So it's there for all of you, because I know as 5th grade parents, you know, you're starting a new chapter next year, and there's so many opportunities for all your students. So it is, as Britt says, right off the press. It's Tuesday, October 26th from 7 to 8 p.m. Now, please understand, this is what they have shared with us. This meeting will be both in person and with an option to meet virtually. So I've gotten this from the coordinator at Gaithersburg Middle School. And I want to make sure that I just got it in the email. Ms. Ritt can confirm that with us. And I just want to make sure that you know that it will be both in person and via Google Meet. All right. And for Madame Payot, the French team leader, a flyer with more information will be sent out by October 15th to all 5th grade students. And of course, it will be all shared with you on the classroom page. All right. So contact information. Ms. Ritt and I highly recommend that you go on the MCPS website, because they have the latest information and it's all linked. So this is the MSMC website page, and also the specialty programs. But for your school-based staff, please, please, please reach out to Julia Payot, who's the 5th grade team leader, and Miss Brittany Rich, who's our school counselor, both amazing resources for you to gain information as to where your child is going. The only thing that I, as a French immersion team leader, need to share with you, for those students going on to the course, and I think I'll stop sharing because that concludes the presentation. For those students who are going on to Gaithersburg Middle School, it is important for you as parents to make that decision within the time frame. And I know that the DC CAPS office requests that all those decisions be made by mid-December to mid-January. And the reason that is so key and crucial is because we need to know staffing as well, right? And that is important for our Gaithersburg Middle School parents, school staff especially, right? Because we need to make sure that we have the proper staffing for all the kids that are going on to Gaithersburg Middle School. I know changes occur from January to May as things occur with the consortium and also with the magnet programs. As a child is accepted into a magnet program, your choice may change. And maybe you may select a magnet program, but then get a chance to see the open house and all that and may change your mind. So those things occur, but we need as much as possible for it to be as linear as possible. And so when you make a choice, make sure that you make that choice with a lot of information. And I know Ms. Ritt and Madame Payot, and Ms. Ritt especially, can share a lot of information, and we'll share all the open house information and all of that. So that being said, let's open it up to questions. If there's any question that you wish to have or answer, let us know. I'll put you in gallery view. All right, any questions that you may have? I know it's an exciting time for all fifth grade parents. We in elementary are very, very fortunate because we get to see you from kindergarten through sixth grade. The middle school does not have that luxury. So it's hard for us to let go of our fifth grade students.
Any
I will
questions?
add too, sorry.
Go ahead.
Last year we articulated into 16 different middle schools. So at any time, please ask questions because I have probably contacted that middle school at least 3 times.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Madam Riley and Ms. Ritt. We appreciate it. This will be recorded. And if, Madam Riley, if you don't, or Ms. Ritt, if you could email me or Erin, who's our webmaster, the presentation, we can put this on our website
Perfect.
and have it
Will do.
available. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So moving along, the next item on our agenda is Julie Polakovich-Carr, who, if you live in, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Rockville or Gaithersburg, Julie is your state representative in Annapolis. She's also the mother of a first grader at Maryvale and my neighbor, and the wife of our secretary, Eric. So, so Julie's very much plugged into Maryvale, and we invited her here today to give a brief overview of some of the education initiatives happening in Annapolis, because there's a lot happening, and this is something that does impact our children and our school, but we may or may not always be aware of what's happening. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda, for that nice introduction. I'm going to share my screen. I have a couple of slides. And hopefully I can get this to, there we go. Hopefully that's up now. Yeah, so I am one of our state representatives. If you live in, I'll say the municipality of Rockville or the municipality of Gaithersburg, because there are folks who have mailing addresses who are kind of the broader area, and those are not necessarily in District 17, which I represent. And as just kind of a quick civics lesson before we get started, Maryland is a little bit unique in that we have multi-member districts. So you actually have 3 other people in addition to me who represent you in the Maryland Assembly, which is our state legislature, which is like, you know, mini version of Congress. So tonight I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the things that have been going on in the state legislature and at the state level in terms of education policy and funding, and then leave some time for questions. So at the most basic level, I'll just say that the state is directly involved in terms of funding public school education in Montgomery County and in every county in the state of Maryland. We also pass laws that impact the policy and the day-to-day ongoings in public schools. So starting with the money piece, this is actually MCPS's budget from last year. And as you can see, the biggest piece of the pie, the blue part, is local funding. So Montgomery County is the biggest supporter of schools here in our jurisdiction. providing about 2/3 of the money. But the state is the next biggest funder of public schools. And it might be surprising to some people, but actually the federal government plays a very small role in terms of public school funding. Only about 3% of MCPS's budget comes from the federal government. But the state funds are allocated to a whole bunch of different programs. The state funding mechanisms are actually really complicated and sometimes specific in terms of what each jurisdiction gets. But in general, the money is used for pretty much everything you can think of in the school district, paying for staff salaries, operational costs, physical building projects, as well as payments into the retirement plans for education employees. So moving on to the policy part, which I think for many people is perhaps the more interesting piece of it. The big initiative in recent years at the state level has been an initiative called the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, also sometimes known as the Kerwin Commission. And this has been a multi-year effort that really arose out of a recognition that Maryland has many great schools in it, but when we look kind of systematically and across the entire state and across all of 24 local school districts in the state of Maryland, there's a lot of unevenness in terms of what the quality of the education is and the resources that some students in some schools have. And we see this in terms of educational outcomes for students. So we're lucky our kids go to a great school. MCPS is a great school district, but that isn't necessarily the case for every kid. And we see that kind of in terms of the state rankings for our public school system. Maryland actually at one time in the not that distant past, had the best ranked public school systems across the board in the entire nation. And we've been kind of consistently slipping. We're down now around 10th or 11th. So not terrible, but kind of heading in the wrong direction. So in recognition of this, several years ago, a blue ribbon panel of education experts was convened by the legislature to basically do a very in-depth look at what's going on, what's going wrong, what should we be doing differently, specifically how should state dollars be spent differently, are there enough resources, a whole host of issues. And they spent several years really like digging in and really poking and prodding at what the issues are in terms of K-12 education in the state. And they came back a couple of years ago with very specific recommendations about things that we should be doing differently at the state level and at the local level for each district. And there are a lot of recommendations that came out of this group. But in general, there's kind of 5 categories that they fit into, which I highlight here on this slide. So the first one has to do with early childhood education. We know how important that is in terms of outcomes for kids in school, but also in their adult lives. So actually having full day pre-K, for lower income 3- and 4-year-olds that's subsidized by the state was one of the major pieces that came out of this group. The second has to do with our workforce. This isn't specific necessarily to Maryland, but nationally there is a teacher shortage. We are not actually graduating enough education majors from colleges, specifically here in Maryland, but this is true in many other parts of America as well, to fill just the basic needs in terms of general churn and staff turnover and retirements within our school system. Maryland is kind of known as an importer state for teachers because we aren't graduating enough, but also because many new teachers will actually leave and go back to whatever state they are originally from. They go back to Pennsylvania or what other adjacent states to continue their teaching career. Or again, this is a national issue, not specific to Maryland, but they leave the profession. So a large part of this legislation was really trying to address that issue of how do we recruit, train, and retain high quality teachers. Some of the pieces that came out of this were increases in teacher pay to make it comparable to other professions that require similar educational degrees, things to help teachers basically advance up the ladder as well. There's, again, a lot of parts to each of these bullets. The next 2 bullets really are about student outcomes and ensuring that every student who's graduating from a public school is ready for either a career or to go on to college, because that is not necessarily the case right now. Again, we live in a great cluster. That isn't necessarily the case in everywhere else in Maryland. So making sure that we're putting resources into and specifically focused and directed at the students who need the most help and who maybe have fallen behind. And then the last part is around accountability, again, to ensure that this taxpayer money is being spent well, and that we actually are getting the educational outcomes for students that we are, intending and hoping to see with these initiatives. So this whole package of recommendations was passed by the legislature about a year and a half ago during the 2020 session. It didn't go into effect until this year. That's because the governor actually vetoed the bill last year. We overrode the veto earlier this year. And so now this actually is law. This is the direction of where our education system is going. And it really has put Maryland on the map nationally in terms of education policy. Other states are looking at what we're doing here and the directions that we're going with this new law. So to just highlight a few other policy issues that are happening in Annapolis, I'm sorry, actually, so just one example, one more thing on the blueprint here, some examples of how the additional money and funding that is part of this legislation, this law, actually are going to be spent here in Montgomery County. So this is the current year allocation for MCPS. This is additional dollars in addition to the tens of millions of hundreds of millions of dollars that our school system otherwise receives from the state. The biggest bulk of it, that supplemental instruction, is to help students who are behind, but there's also dedicated additional funds for special education, increasing teacher salaries, pre-K, amongst other issues. So yeah, so just to highlight a few other policy issues that have been brewing in the state legislature in recent years. One other bill that we passed this year was really a follow-up to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, so the legislation I just was speaking about, and that was trying to address some of the issues that we know have come out of the pandemic and that we're still dealing with in terms of student learning loss, need for additional behavioral and mental health resources, the digital divide in many households and in parts of the state. So we passed legislation to provide some additional resources to school districts on those issues. School construction has been a big issue here in Montgomery County, but in other parts of the state, both for districts that have growing enrollment like we do, but also for districts that have shrinking enrollment have their own issues in terms of what that means for their physical facilities. So last year, we passed the largest one-time investment in school construction in Maryland's history. We authorized $2.2 billion in funding for school construction. That's over a multi-year period, but just as kind of a baseline comparison, the state had been spending and continues to spend about $400 million a year as kind of like the baseline for what the state puts into school construction. So for Montgomery County, that's going to be about a 50% increase in the state aid for school construction overall. And then this slide just has a sampling of some of the other education legislation that we took up and actually passed this year. So these are all new laws, but you can get a sense of just kind of the breadth of issues that come before the legislature. I mean, it's everything from prohibiting fees on summer school courses, support for parents and parenting students, and even the state actually is responsible for educating juveniles who are incarcerated, and we made some big reforms to that education system. So it's a wide range of bills that come before the legislature in terms of education policy. So at this point of the year, and as my husband knows, we're starting to look forward to what's going to happen in the upcoming legislative session. Maryland is like most states, actually is a part-time legislature. We meet for 90 days, basically from mid-January till about mid-April. So it's always kind of looking into a crystal ball to figure out exactly what the issues are going to be, a few months out before the session. There definitely are a few education-related issues that didn't quite get resolved completely this past session. I would say probably the most contentious one that I think will be coming back will be about permanent virtual schools. There was a lot of debate about that, given that many school districts opted to have, ongoing virtual schools, not as a backup plan because of COVID, but just as a new option to offer students. Otherwise, I think there'll be probably several dozen bills in the education sphere. I'm actually working on that last one on the list around what supports and guidelines school districts should be providing for schools for kids who have severe food allergies. But yeah, that is the kind of the quick overview of what's going on in Maryland in terms of education policy. I'll just, my contact information is up here. I'll just say that if people ever have questions or issues about anything, and especially like you have issues with a state agency, you should feel free to reach out to me via my office, because we can help with all kinds of things, unemployment benefits, problems with the MVA, want to report a pothole on a state road, anything like that.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Delegate Polakovich Carr? Well, I also want to thank you, Julie, while we've got you here, she's responsible for organizing last week's Walk to School Day. The stickers and the banners, and just a great example of kind of parental initiative of reaching out and saying, is the PTA doing anything for Walk to School Day? And I said, I don't know. And Julie took it under her wing and organized it. So we really appreciate that. And as Ms. Prin noted in the Connect Ed, there's a great banner hanging up in the foyer with all sorts of stickers for kids who walked. But any other questions before we move on?
This is Soraya Toze. Sorry, I don't have my camera on. I'm using my phone today. I was curious to know about, I saw that I had asked this question before of Montgomery County Council member, because I know before there was a push for universal pre-K, and also right now, obviously at the federal level, there's push for childcare, and we know our neighbors, DC has that. And I've seen that there's been a settlement on focusing on for low income, which I recognize there's more need there, but wondering is there just not the political momentum and the funding to try and push that? Because I see that as a great investment in families, children, and the economy. And just wondering what the talk is about that in the county, but also in the state.
Yeah, that is a great issue. Thank you for bringing it up. And I'll say, I can't speak with too much detail in terms of what the county is exactly doing. This has been an issue where I'd say Montgomery County has been leading the state and been ahead of the state on in terms of providing childcare. So I'm not sure entirely what's brewing at the county level at the moment. I'll say at the state level, I think what ultimately passed as part of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future in terms of providing the subsidized full day pre-K for low-income 3- and 4-year-olds was really intended as a stepping stone that we're going to keep moving towards expanding that. And continuing to provide, more subsidies to a wider range of families. As you mentioned, it is important. It's important to those kids and families, but societally, economically, there are definitely big payoffs in terms of doing that. I think it's just a matter of where the money comes from and what the time frame is. And there are some other programs that are in place at the state level now, but the prop rate, it just doesn't cover everyone. There is another program that provides subsidies for childcare. It is over-enrolled, oversubscribed every year, and families who need it don't have access. So I think there's a variety of kind of places and programs where with some additional funding, we definitely could get a lot further and cover a lot more families. But yeah, it's just, does it ever rise to the level of, being a priority? And I feel like that's where sometimes it's been an issue. Everything's competing in the budget. I don't serve on that committee, but every year they hear about a lot of different things, and I can't speak to, I don't know. I'm not sure entirely why they don't move on some of these other issues. The governor has been a barrier in that front as well. In Maryland, our budgeting rules are kind of weird, in terms of how much control the legislature has versus the governor. I'll say that too.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? All right, Sandra, thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate you joining us. And Sandra, I'm going to turn it over to you for some upcoming fundraising initiatives. You're on mute.
Sorry, I don't do Zoom all that often. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. So tomorrow is actually our next fundraiser. We're going to have a restaurant night at Via Maya, which is off of Norbeck, fairly close to the elementary school. It's a great restaurant. Hope you guys can support them, and in return they'll give us, well, actually, I wasn't able to confirm the percent of the sales that we get. It's usually around 10 to 20% of the sales that we get. So if you are looking for a great dinner tomorrow and don't have plans, check out Via Maya. My kids love it, even though it is Mexican food. It's not super overly spicy. I don't know. And then we have a couple more restaurant nights in the future. We're going to try to do one once a month. So there will be one in November at Chipotle in Rockville. And the next thing, so just in general for our fundraising goals, our PTA budget, it's kind of since we've been in the holding school and it's hasn't been consistent, but we're shooting for like 15,000, I think is what Acacia had for this year, right? Is that was what our goal was for our budget, I think. And so for that to work, we need money, which is why we do restaurant nights, and we will have a book fair. But we are going to be starting a Cougar cash drive where we're just keeping it simple. We're just asking for families to send in some money to help support some of the programs that we offer. The largest thing that we support are materials for Mrs. Chittum, and Acacia and Keith, you guys can correct me on this. But we also do provide grants for our teachers here at Maryvale. So it averages at about to $30 a student at Maryvale. If every family could, or $25.30, if every family were to donate that much, that would cover our budget. So we would love if you guys could consider donating and just kind of keep it simple. You'll see we're going to be updating our member hub and asking for this, but this is what we're going to be starting. We're calling it our Cougar Cash Drive. And yeah, we would love to fundraise. I know sometimes it's fun to have programs and to get students involved in sales, but we're just trying to keep it simple. Mr. Bowerman has pledged to do some type of reward if we achieve our goal. We're shooting for about $5,000 just for this Cougar Cash Drive. So there will be something to look forward to with him, and possibly some other teachers might get on board. And then we also are going to be doing a Spirit Gear t-shirt contest where we're going to have the students design a t-shirt design for our t-shirt wear, and have just new design, and then sell the t-shirts for our school. So that's what we're working on right now.
Thank you so much, Sandra. And Sandra, thank you for everything you've done so far and continue to work on. As she noted, it's been a rough couple of years between the holding school and COVID. And though the PTA isn't all about money, we can't do a lot of what we do. We can't buy $4,000 in books for the library. We can't provide the grants to the teachers without fundraising support. So we recognize that not every family is able to just donate cash. We know that, and we want to hope that as a community, those who can donate a little bit more are willing to do so, and that because all of our programming and all of our events are open to everybody, and we want to make Maryvale as a whole a better community, and we can do that through some fundraising. So again, stay tuned for our Cougar Cash Drive. We'll be launching that in the next week or two. Again, that's just donations through our website. We have some cute like Cougar Roar and Cougar Growl and different levels of donation. And then yes, the t-shirt design, we've had the same Spirit Gear, the same t-shirt, that black t-shirt with the cougar on it for many years, and we love it. But we feel like it's always an opportunity to design some new t-shirts, sell those t-shirts, but excitingly, our children will be able to design the new design. And I think that'll be exciting as hopefully the kids will get involved, and the winner will get a free t-shirt and that sort of thing. So any questions or additional thoughts on fundraising?
I did have one update. I did contact, I sent an email to the board, but I did contact a local printer, and they did get back to me today on a quote for 36 shirts. It comes out to about $6.50 a shirt. But they did say that I said, if you put your logo on it, would you do a discount? And they said that they would. That doesn't include that discount. So around $6 a shirt. And I also looked into if we want to do like on-demand printing for some designs. But if we want to use that contest for our spirit gear, then it would make sense to then obviously do that, you know, use that design then for the spirit gear, for all the spirit gear, or is that what we're thinking?
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Keith, I did see your email. I'm a little behind on emails, but thank you.
Yeah, don't worry about it. There's a lot going on, but I just wanted to give you an update on that. So I do have a printer here in Gaithersburg that will do it, and their prices seem right, and they were
Sure.
super responsive, and so.
And
But
also, whether people want to pipe in now or just send emails later, you know, at movie night, a few people asked me for sweatshirts or, you know, we've just kind of done t-shirts and only t-shirts, and that's fine and that's easy. But to the extent we think there's demand for hoodies, or, you know, we've got those backpacks, or I don't know what, but, you know, I'm open to thinking a little creatively about where there's demand if we think that, you know, people would
well,
be
I think that
interested in
that's
it.
a good opportunity for the on-demand stuff. Like we could take that design, put it on there, and then if somebody's like, "Hey, do you have sweatshirts?" Like, yeah, we do. You can go to our bonfire.com website, and you can get the design and put it on a sweatshirt. Then we don't have to prepay for it all, and then they
Makes
get it
sense.
shipped back to them.
Sure.
So maybe when we do like events, we have like a little printout of like, here's some other things if you wanted to get something different than a t-shirt. You know, as an idea.
Any other thoughts or questions on this? Great. All right, we're going to keep this on time. 4 minutes. Other business. We unfortunately have lost our communications chair. And I'm currently doing the newsletter. And if you're on our email list, you saw that I'm kind of putting out a pitch to see if there's anybody interested in being the communications chair. Certainly send me an email, Teresa. Thank you I'm president at maryvalepta.org. At its simplest, it's doing the newsletter every week, but to the extent you have energy and ideas, we also are really excited to think about other ways we can be doing communication better. You know, we have Facebook, but just being strategic about what the best way to communicate is. And we also are looking for someone to be a volunteers chair, which would be coordinating volunteers, which at the moment is not so much because our in-person events are so minimal, but could probably grow in the spring as we hope vaccines are coming and, you know, things will start to look a little bit more normal in the spring. And so I realize we only have 3 minutes left, but it's open forum. Anything that anybody wants to bring up, questions, topics, things to discuss? Great. Well, I am going to take the silences as no. As always, feel free to send me an email at president@maryvalepta.org at any time. I want to thank our special guests today, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, Madam Riley, Ms. Ritt, and of course, Ms. Prin and Mr. Bowerman, and all the members of the board for being on for the past hour and a half. I appreciate your energy and your efforts, and I hope you all found some value in this meeting, and we will see you in November. So thank you very much. Bye.